Joining us right now is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He is former FDA commissioner. He's also a CNBC contributor, and he serves on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer. And Scott, this is a really interesting question that I hadn't spent that much time talking about. Although earlier this week when we had the Moderna CEO, or maybe it was the last time we had him on, when he was talking about the 600 people who are going to be signing up in the phase 2 study, I asked him where those people came from. And it is kind of a question. Who volunteers for this? Do they get paid for this? What kind of ethics questions are at play?
Well, they would get paid for it. You wouldn't want to pay them an amount that would induce them to do it. So that would be one of the ethical questions that you'd have to consider. These would be probably 18 to 30-year-olds. It's controversial, but these are extraordinary times. I think we'll end up not doing it. I mean, the reason to do it, I believe, is, one, you can get an earlier answer on whether or not the vaccines are effective in a phase 2 study, and this would be a phase 2 study. And two, we're really not going to be able to enroll trials in July and August. There's probably not going to be enough virus here in the United States circulating to enroll clinical trials in July and August and find out whether or not these vaccines are working. So we're really going to have to wait till the fall. And sponsors that try to enroll large trials in July and August might enroll them in the wrong place. You might enroll your trial in Houston and find out that the outbreak's going to be in Dallas, so you've enrolled the trial in the wrong city. So it's going to be hard to make a lot of advances on clinical development in the summer until we get into the fall. The one thing you could do is these human challenge studies. And just one final point, the complexity here is going to be not recruiting the volunteers. It's going to be manufacturing good GMP-grade virus in a BSL lab, BSL-3 lab, basically a high-security lab that can manufacture this virus. There aren't many of them. There's probably just one lab that DoD maintains that has the capability to actually manufacture this virus for a trial like that.
So what about the phase 2 that we've already heard from places like Moderna and others? That's not going to happen? Or I'm confused by what you're saying, that we won't be doing this, that it won't be effective, or we won't know because they'll be in a place where there's just not a lot of the outbreak?
Well, so the phase 2 studies that these companies are doing now, they're just looking at what we call immunogenicity data. They're looking at whether the vaccines produce antibodies and whether those antibodies look like the kinds of antibodies that are going to have a clinical benefit. But you're not actually studying the vaccine in a setting where people are coming into contact with the virus. I mean, you can try to do that, but you're unlikely to be able to do that in the summertime as levels of the virus are coming down. So you need to wait until the fall when you can vaccinate, let's say, 30,000 people in the setting of an outbreak, and enough of them will come into contact with the virus that you can figure out whether the vaccine's working compared to a control group. So in this setting, this would be a way to expose people to the virus at a time, probably July and August, when there's just not going to be a lot of circulating COVID for people to come into contact with. So it's a way to accelerate development and get an earlier answer on whether the vaccines are working. Now, there's some thinking that you can go directly into the big phase 3 trials from the small phase 2 trials where you're just looking at immunogenicity data.
Scott, I want to focus on one thing that you said, though. We've been watching the numbers, and they have been coming down in places like New York and New Jersey. Washington State looks enormously better than it had at the beginning of this. And as you keep mentioning, it's going to look a lot better in July and August. Are you going to feel comfortable to the point soon that you kind of break out of the lockdown that you've been into? Do you feel like it's that time? Because it's nice weather out. People are going out all over. Is that okay? Is that a safe thing to do now?
I think we're all going to be able to take a breather this summer. I hope that's the case and get back to some semblance of normalcy while still being careful of what we do. Going out a little less, making sure we practice good hygiene when we do go out, shrinking down our social circles. So I think if everyone just takes some simple precautions in their lives and shrinks down the social circles a little and the amount of time they shop, that could have a big distributed effect. There was a study out of CHOP that basically showed if people, just shop one day a week less, that could have a big impact. If they're coming into contact with other people just a little less on the margin. So I think if we're all careful this summer, we could take a breather and get back to some semblance of normalcy. Now, we can't be complacent coming off the summer, heading into the fall, when the risk is going to be very different. But I do agree with you, Becky. I'm hopeful that this summer, we can just take a break.